Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. Without your questions, I do not have a show. This is for November 2024, and I'm actually recording this on November 2nd, 2024. So here in the United States, it's a few days before the election. I'm not going to talk about the election. All I want to say is about the election is that the last few months of YouTube have been pretty weird for drummers. I don't know how many of you in the drumming communities, maybe if any of you watch me from the drumming community, just tell me yes or no if you were experiencing the same things I'm experiencing. But for the most part, YouTube is absorbed with commercials right now, double commercials for everything. If you are monetizing it, you're not getting one commercial, you're getting two to push through. Usually one of those is a political ad. You're also not getting pushed into the stream because there's so much political content out there that nothing's getting pushed. So my viewership is going down slowly in the last couple months. It's not that my output's gone down that much. I've cut back a little bit. I said I was going to do that in September. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't really matter. This doesn't really matter from my perspective, because I do this for fun. I have fun with it. But for those of you that love YouTube and do YouTube, I think the YouTube drumming thing seems to be on a downslide. And my prediction is we're not going to see this kind of tick back up until Christmas to January, February. It'll start to kind of even out. And that's if our election cycle goes where one winner is declared pretty early on and we don't go through the mess of 2020. If not, all bets are off when this levels out and YouTube drumming becomes something that we all enjoy because we're starting to look at videos for fun. Right now, it's just too intense. So I'm putting out a lot of cool videos, but I don't think people are watching them that much. So and anyhow, I thank you all that do watch my videos every day. Now, I got some cool stuff happening in the queue. One thing is I saw Tate Berkey. I guess it was over a week ago, 2 weeks ago. That's like a weekend, 10 days ago, I saw Tate Berkey. It was a Thursday night at, what's the place called? You would think I know all the hip clubs here in South Florida, but this is the first time I ever went to this club. And I'm throwing Tate's name in here just to put his name in the thing as I mentioned him. And I'll show you a little clip of Tate. I'm going to show you Tate's drum solo at the end of this show. So Tate did about a 4-minute drum solo that would knock my socks off. He was just incredible. But anyhow, it was called the Funky Biscuit. Other guys that have played the Funky Biscuit, there's been some major acts that play the Funky Biscuit in Boca Raton. We've seen Simon Phillips, Billy Cobham, a lot of major funk fusion acts, jazz acts come through there and play the Funky Biscuit. So Tate was playing with his blues act, and then he was going out and doing a cruise. As a matter of fact, he gets home today, so he may hit me up, and we may still connect. If we do, if we do connect, I will make sure I do some video in the studio if we connect again, if he comes down to the studio. And at that point in time, I'll include it in the next Ask Earl Anything in December. I'm moving this because it's driving me nuts that my cymbal's touching this. This is driving me crazy right now. I'll move everything when I go back to recording. But I don't know if you realize this, but an Ask Earl Anything said I like to be around a drum kit, but I also can't have cymbals in the way, so I move this one over a little bit, and the mics get in the way, and they're sticking up, and they're in my face. And if I cut my head off, this is low dollar production. I don't have a production crew. I don't have an engineering crew. I don't have a video crew. I don't pay for ads so that people watch my videos. Every subscriber I've gotten is just because you guys like what I do, or I played a song that you liked and you subscribed, and I thank you all for that, every one of you. But there's no production value. I chose to just do drum covers back 7 years ago when I started this whole thing in earnest. And I say in earnest because I have videos that go back to 2010 or 11, or just me goofing around. and putting something up on YouTube. But in earnest, 2017, the fall of 2017, I started trying to do this. And since then, I have been very successful for a guy that just puts out videos and gets views the way it's done, like 200 people viewing at a time on a video. When you have over 2,000 videos, though, that changes things, you know what I mean? So that's why I've got so many subs. It's over 7 years, and it has to really to do with all the views I've had. And I've made some cool videos that people love, and I got videos people hate. They can't stand, or they don't watch, or they watched only to this point and then it was over with. So songs come and go in vogue, and when the song comes in vogue, some drummer has to play it on a gig, and then all of a sudden they start looking at it. Apparently, Sweet Caroline is a hot song, because I grew Sweet Caroline over the last 3 years. From the first initial viewing of it probably was like 300 or 400 views in the first week. So now it's like 30,000 views. I don't know what the big deal about Sweet Caroline is. It's not that hard a song to play, but people love it. So I thank you all that love my videos. But that being said, I don't have a production team. So this is me setting up a camera. So I got to get it right. And when I don't get it right, sometimes it looks really bad. So I think when I did the Karen Carpenter thing, I cut part of my head off. It was driving me nuts. I would come down a little bit. So I got to make sure I get the camera so it goes over my head and I have enough space to really deal with it. But I like the drums to be in the video because I think it kind of looks cool versus me sitting in front of a green screen or something like that. I'm not a news anchor, you know what I mean? So I want you guys to see what I do. This is drumming. So back to Tate. Got to hang out with Tate. Tate played some great drums with Gabe Stillman. That's the guy he goes out with, the blues artist. I think I said his name right. If I got it wrong, Tate, let me know I got it wrong. At the Funky Biscuit, Tate was killing it, rocking it. Didn't get to hang out afterwards, but we hung out before, which was a lot of fun. My son-in-law, Aaron, came with me, and we watched the show. Had a great time. Ken Burton, I'm sorry I didn't invite you, but when Aaron said he wanted to go, I only had 2 tickets, so I thought, we'll go. Thank you for the comps, Tate, too. I appreciate that. It really was a fun night. So I'm going to put a little bit of Tate. I'm going to put Tate solo at the end of this show. So for those of you who like to know what's coming at the end, there's going to be a solo at the end. I actually filmed the solo, so Tate's killing it. Watch Tate at the end. Nothing else. Go from here to the end. I'm not marking it for you. You got to go find it. That makes you kind of go through the video. Anyhow, I hope you don't get 50 commercials because it is that time of year, with the political ads. I also got another friend coming down, and if he gets down here and we actually hook up, I will try to get some video of that for the next Ask Earl Anything. I still want to encourage you all that if you want to share your drum space with me or you want to share some of your drumming, I will include it in my show. I did get a video from somebody asked me to critique their drumming and give them some ideas for what they could do with a song. I'm not going to put that in this one because I wasn't given permission. And I am cutting this pretty quick, so rather than tell you I'm going to do it, I'm not going to tell you that. But I always loved when guys would send me their kits or their studio space and everything else. And I have a question about recording drums. So we will talk about that in this show. I have a lot of questions today and a lot of guys that are longtime followers or guys in the drum community that follow me and watch this show. So let me jump right in. Just know that it is coming into November, and then it's Christmas, and all that good stuff's coming along. So, anyhow, I got a lot of questions. I think it's going to be an hour just because I got all these questions. So thank you all for your questions. Your questions do make the show. All right, let's start at the top. This is a question I missed from the last show. Continuum drums, Lutz. Lutz is from Germany. Lutz has been playing drums 50 years. He's been in a lot of bands. He plays on YouTube. He plays electronic drums. He plays acoustic drums. He builds drums. He messes with cymbals. I mean, he's all over the place in the things he does. Check out Lutz. Of course, he will be linked in my description below. And here's the question. He said, "Hey, another great show, my drum brother. Cool answer. But I'm sorry, did you forget my question about switching from a drum rack to stands and why? I did forget your question. Matter of fact, I can't even find the question. So I'm going to use this question as the question. Let's talk about drum racks versus stands. For a while here on this concert tom kit, I had a Gibraltar stand. Now, that Gibraltar stand was not my drum rack. I did have a drum rack once in my life. By the way, all know I'm a big fan of Jeff Porcaro. And back in the 90s, I went in a music store where they had a Jeff Porcaro rack with 8 clamps on it. And I may even have a picture of my son and I jamming with the Porcaro rack somewhere. If I do, I'll stick it in. But this is when my son was like 13, 14 years old and back in Brick, New Jersey. And I loved the Porcaro rack. Matter of fact, I had a friend who cut it down, the aluminum, to get it smaller because I had a double. So it was set up for double bass drums. And I thought the Porcaro rack, the one that Jeff Porcaro created with Paul Jamieson, was the best drum rack out there. I really did. I didn't really want a tube rack ever. But my son-in-law, who married my daughter, Sandra, I never mentioned Sandra, by the way. I'll mention my daughter's this show a couple times, actually. Aaron, who married my daughter, Sandra, he had a drum rack. And for a while there, I had most of his drum gear in my studio. I had his Yamaha kit in here for years. I had his hardware in my garage. And I had this rack. And when I started putting together this concert tom kit, I started using the rack because this bass drum didn't have a Pearl tom mount on it. This bass drum is a Gretsch, converted to Ludwig lugs because of the story I've told many times that it didn't have all the lugs. The Gretsch lugs had some oddball Pearl lugs. And whoever had this bass drum put a Ludwig mount on it, which, if you look at my 18-inch Gretsch bass drum, it's got a Ludwig mount on it too. So the Ludwig mount was the mount, but that doesn't really go with the Pearl. So a few years back, I had a problem with my Pearl mount on my 20-inch bass drum. I've had it for 40 years now, and it was stripping out, and I went looking for a Pearl mount to replace that. And when I bought it, I bought this one that came off an export, and I thought they were interchangeable. Mistake. Anyhow, I took the export mount, tried to put it on. It didn't match up screw-wise. I couldn't do it. So that just sat in a box. Then I eventually found an old replacement for that, so I repaired that bass mount right here on the bass drum. You probably can't see it. It's probably out of the camera shot. And one day I took the export mount and I said, I'm just going to drill the holes in this bass drum and put this on here and put these on. And that's the day that these toms, the two in the front, got off of the rack and became part of the drum kit on the bass drum. Prior to that, I needed a rack to hold them, or I needed stands to hold them. So the rack worked, but I never liked the rack. Now, fast forward through the next year or so of me using it this way, and my grandson, Asher, wants to take home his dad's drums because he's got a garage now. They live in a place where he's got a garage, and he can set up the drums in the garage. And he took the Yamaha kit home, and he was having a problem mounting the Yamaha kit. And I thought to myself, let me help him. I'll give him the rack, and I'll help him set it up. So that's what we did. So he has the rack now. I don't have a rack anymore. So the rack went to its rightful owner, my son-in-law, and my grandson. And my grandson uses it with the Yamaha kit. So it's not that I don't like racks, but truthfully, racks are not useful for small gigs. They're only useful in a studio environment where they're set up a certain way and you want it a certain way. And I think that's what Jeff liked about that Jamieson Porcaro rack. Basically, it's set up. His toms can be set up differently. Whatever he needed to do, he can mount all his cymbal stands off of it. It worked great. This was one bar in the front. I still had cymbal stands around it. So from my perspective, it really didn't work. So that's my rack journey, Lutz. I hope that answers that question. I appreciate the question. Thanks a lot. Let's go to our next question. So our next question is from Dennis Shirts 4677. That's an interesting name for the question I'm going to get next. This was on my last Ask Earl Anything. He said, can you go over where you order some of your t-shirt collection? Now, I told you I was going to mention my daughters again. My two daughters, Bethany and Sandra, love to get me things for Father's Day or my birthday or Christmas. And most of my t-shirt collection comes from my daughters or my wife. I think this is one of my wife's shirts. I think she bought me this shirt. And most of my shirts are pretty old now. I've been collecting shirts. I'm married 41 years. And it's been the last 10, 15 years, they send me shirts. So I've got all kinds of drum shirts. Now, for the longest time, I really didn't have many drum shirts. But over the years, I've acquired a whole bunch of drum shirts. Many of them are so worn out, I don't wear them anymore. And you're seeing the newer ones. One of my favorites is the one about the bacon, bacon being the drums are the bacon of music, meaning we bring the sizzle to the music. I have two of those. I have one in gray and I have one in black. And I have two sizes, too. It's important to have many sizes when you're me, unfortunately. But most of my shirts come from my daughters. My daughters probably get them on Amazon. My wife's occasionally seen them on Facebook, where there'll be an ad for a drum shirt, and she'll get them there. I got a couple drum shirts from the Nashville Drum Show while I was there. I got one at Forks and one at Drums. The Drums Y'all is from the Drum Supply House in Nashville. Andy Foot's store. Great store. If you're in Nashville, check out Andy Foot's store, Drum Supply House. And if you're in Nashville, check out Forks Drum Closet. I've got two Forks shirts. I've got an old Forks shirt, a green one that I wear. I haven't worn it in a long time. It's pretty worn out. I got it from the original Forks in Nashville from Gary Forkham, who owned the Forks Drum Closet. And that's a funny story. I walked in there with a Resurrection Drum shirt. So that goes all the way back to 2010. I had two Resurrection Drum shirts. One I got at one of these Big Beat events. And the Big Beat events were something that was going on around 2009, 10, 11-ish, somewhere in that range, where they'd all get together on this weekend in November, be the first weekend in November, and they get together in some outdoor space. And we'd all play a rock beat at 6 o'clock, and jam together. And it was like trying to go for the Guinness Book of World Records. And you had drum clinics all day. And I went down there with Dan from DMR Custom Drums. I did a video on DMR Custom Drums and Dan. So check out Dan Rotelli in that video. That was recent. And there's actually some photos from that event. I had a Blue Sparkle Ludwig kit. I never had a DMR kit. But I had my Blue Sparkle Club Day kit, which I wish I still had. I had a DMR snare drum with me that day. And I had a Resurrection Drum shirt that I got from the event. And the next time I went into town to Nashville to do some teaching for the last company I worked at, I went to Forks and I had the Resurrection Drum shirt on. And I walked in, and Gary Forkham walked up to me and he looked at me. He said, "Do you know Jeff at Resurrection Drums?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I know Jeff Lee. Yeah, I know him." Matter of fact, let me say this. God rest his soul. Jeff Lee just passed away in the last month. God rest his soul. I loved Resurrection Drums. I don't know what's going to happen to Resurrection Drums down here. But this was 2011. I walked in. Gary Forkham asked me that question. "Do you know Jeff Lee?" I said, "Yeah, I know Jeff." He goes, "Hold on a second." He gave me that kind of look. It was kind of really strange, this look, like, "Hold on a second." I said, "Okay." And he came back and he handed me a Forks Drum shirt. He says, "Here, tell Jeff I gave you this shirt." Now, I did tell Jeff one day when I was out down there 10 years ago, probably. But the funny thing was, I guess they had some kind of bet who was going to send somebody in their shop with a Forks shirt on or a Resurrection Drum shirt first. And I guess I was the first guy to walk in with a Resurrection Drum shirt, so I got a t-shirt. So that's my first Forks Drum Closet shirt. But most of my t-shirts have come from my daughters, Bethany and Sandra, and my wife, Stephanie, or Mrs. Hammer, as you like affectionately call her. Yeah. And I think a lot of these shirts you can buy on Amazon. Um, Occasionally I get shirts when I'm on the road in a drum shop, like I said, Forge Drum Closet, etc. Um, I got my Gretsch shirt at the Gretsch retail store outside of Savannah in Pooler, Georgia once. I've had that for years, that shirt. Man, I've got so many drum shirts that I've gotten from my daughters, and I have to give my daughter and my wife the most, but then I get those I get from drum shops. So I hope that answers your question. You seem like a t-shirt guy. I mean, I've got some really nice ones too. So gotta thank the girls, my wife, Bethany, and Sandra. Thank you all for the t-shirts, and I hope that question was fun. Um, I'm good for lots of stories, just so you know. That's what makes Ask Earl Anything special, isn't it? My crazy stories. So, all right, here's my next question. This comes from Brent3760. Earl, do you have a preference over how many snare wires you use? I found I really like 18. I'd like to hear your take. Thank you, Brenton D. Well, Brenton D, thanks for the question. I saved it for Ask Earl Anything. My preference on snare wires depends on the snare drum, and I've learned that. Now, I will say this. I went through a huge phase. I guess it was probably about, I don't know, 2000-ish, somewhere in there, where I liked the 42 strand wires. I remember when Dan from DMR, I was building the first snare drum he built for me, which was the cast aluminum drum. I said to Dan, I really want to put a 42 strand wire on there. But the snare bed didn't really allow 42 strand wires. So he tried it, but it didn't work. So he ended up putting a 25 on there, and I liked it. I tend to like more snares than less. So I put what's ever best for the drum. I think the Ludwig Black Beauty right now has 20 strand wires on it. This 5x14 Black Beauty that's on this kit right now, this has a 42 on it. I put a 42 on this, and I like it. I have a 42 on the other Gretsch snare drum I have. My Noble Cooley has the Noble Cooley wires. It's got the little space in between. I don't know what that is. That might be 20 or 18. I'm not sure. Sounds great. Didn't mess with it. I got my Noble Cooley snare drum customized because I had it for probably about 7 or 8 years. My friend Scott gave it to me. It came with a drum kit that I had for a while. Then I traded that back and got my little Gretsch kit back. But kept the 5x14 snare that was kind of like a champagne sparkle. But in 2020, right before COVID hit, I talked to the Noble and Cooley and I said, "Can you repaint this?" Because the paint was chipping on it and stuff. And they said, "Sure." They charged me $300. And I sent it back to them, and they stripped the paint off of it, and they brought it to kind of a wood grain, and they put like a wood grain red varnished finish on it, which is beautiful. Doesn't quite match my Gretsch kit. I didn't think it would either. So it's a little redder, but they fixed the whole drum up. They cleaned up the die-cast tubes because they don't make them anymore. They replaced all the lugs, the snare strainer, and they put new snare wires on it, new heads and everything. For $300, I thought it was great. And well worth it. I mean, that drum is now my drum, solidly mine. Came to find out that it had been painted before. So it was painted black originally in 1992 or 3 when the drum's from. So that's an old drum. It's actually an old drum. Got repainted this sparkle paint, and then now they redid it mine. And it sounds great. It's a vintage, and I had a 1990s version 5x14 black snare drum. It's kind of funny that this was originally a black. But anyhow, so as far as snares go, I tend to like the bigger snare wires, but truthfully, I use anything that sounds right on the drum. And I don't say it's got to be 18 or 10. I've tried 10. My Acrolite's got 30 strands on it right now. I tried 10 on that for a while. It seemed a little bit too not enough for me, but I know how much Steve Gadd loved it. I tend to go somewhere between 20 and 42. And if it's 25 or it's 30, it's kind of usually where I kind of fall in. More versus less. But there's a lot to be said for guys that like 18. So I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. It is a preference thing, and it depends on the drum. It really does. The drum makes the difference. 42 on that cast aluminum didn't work, but 42 on this Black Beauty, I think it sounds great. I just started playing this drum again after having about 3 or 4 weeks of playing almost exclusively my little kit, doing a couple covers with big band covers with the blonde, the maple Gretsch kit or the walnut Gretsch kit. And both of those, I was not coming in here and taking this drum. I was leaving this drum here. I just played this today and yesterday. And I can tell you, I just love this drum. This drum always sounds good. The other ones are a little finicky. I got to kind of get them in the right sweet spot, and then they have a certain sound. And all my drums have a personality. So anyhow, thanks for the question, Brent. I really do appreciate the question, and thanks for watching. And that was on Ask Earl Anything too, so hopefully you'll see this one. All right, my next question comes from the video Pride and Joy, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan's interesting, that track. I cut it originally, and then I listened to the release mix I put out of it, and it just kind of bothered me. And my shuffle sounded a little uneven for some reason, because I think it was I had too much, has to do with definition. It's an effect I use all the time. It's SPL, Transient Designer. And I think it was too out there, so I kind of made some adjustments to the snare and re-released it, and everybody said, oh yeah, that sounds right now, because they all thought I was playing the shuffle wrong, the Texas Shuffle. But the way you play a Texas Shuffle is you get your both hands going. So it really is I'm going to use these brushes just for fun. Get the idea? So it's kind of... Then you put the kick drum in. They call that a flat tire shuffle. So you're really digging it in. So anyhow, when I did the first mix, it was just so messed up. Didn't sound right. So I went back in, because I still had the file up on my computer. I went back in, remixed it, and re-released it. I don't think it really affected the total views of the day, to be honest. But Ken, my friend, the tire drummer, asked me this question. He goes, when you say revisited on a song, and this song did not say revisited, he said, when you say revisited on a song, does this mean you played a previous version that you've already posted or a brand new song? I'll wait for an answer for the next show. So I think what he was asking me was, revisited, does that mean I'm using an alternate take or something? And in actuality, when I use revisited, that means I played this years ago somewhere else, and I decided I wanted to play it again. I have some songs I love so much, I keep wanting to play them, like You're the Biggest Part of Me by Ambrosia. I've played that 3 times. The first time I played it over the original drum track, no noises, no X-track stems. The second time it was an X-track stems track. And this year I did it again because I just love the song, and it was a Moises track. I realized I had 3 of them, but I just love the song. So if I love a song, I want to play it again, And when I play it again, I don't think it's right to say it's my first time playing the song, so I put revisited. And a lot of times I'll actually add links to the old songs. So it's my way of saying, I've done this before. If you want to check out the original, check it out. And if you don't, that's okay too. Just watch the new one. So I've done that with a bunch of Carpenter songs. There's a bunch of Carpenter songs I've revisited because I loved playing them, and I played my first versions of them. Like my first version of Goodbye to Love by the Carpenters. That was my first attempt at setting this kit up with all the toms. And I had them all mounted really strange. It was 2017. I was in the other room doing it. The heads were all mismatched. And I thought, man, I really want to recut this. So I recut it. And the recut was cool. And then I had an alt take of it. I had another alt take. And then I decided to do it again. So that's another one of those songs I did 3 times. Matter of fact, I maybe have 5 videos of Goodbye to Love. Like 2 of the original version, 2 of the second version, and 1 of the third version. So, I mean, with 2,000 videos out there, you can find, if you put Goodbye to Love in Earl Bennett, you may find 5 videos of that. I don't know. So I try to give you a warning that I'm redoing something. It's a revisit. Now, if it's not a revisit, but I played the song before, it's usually a different version. Like I've got a couple versions of Beginnings by Chicago. I've done the original version twice, so I did do a revisit on that. I also did the Live in Japan version. I don't think I've done Carnegie Hall. Right now, I've got in the queue to do somewhere in the next couple weeks, and I'm not going to do it till I can do it on the Gretsch kit. But I'm planning on redoing Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is? I cut Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is back in 2020, and it seemed like 100 people saw it. So I don't know if it was getting throttled for publishing or whatever. I decided I'm going to do the Live in Japan version. It's the live from 1972 when Chicago re-recorded Carnegie Hall in Japan. That's what they did. The record company said Carnegie Hall really doesn't sound that great, so let's do another one in Japan. And it was only for the Japanese audience. I had the record, the orange Chicago logoed record, with all the stuff inside it. I spent $30. That was a lot of money to spend on a record album. Today I say you buy an album for a double album for $30, and you go, well, you got a discount on it. They're like $40 for a double album because they're $30 for a single album. When I was a kid, a double album cost you $8. So when I spent $30 on an album from Japan, that was a big deal. So I'm planning on Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is? And I plan on doing that soon. That's going to be one of the ways I'm going to redo some of the Chicago songs. But then I have to learn it from the album. And this happens to be an album I played a lot as a kid, that and Carnegie Hall. But the original is always what everybody remembers. So I try to go to the original version before I go to a live version. That's just me. But yeah, revisited means I've done it before, this version before, and a lot of times I will include a link so you can hear the original version too. That's my little thing. Ken, I know you do a lot of your songs over again. You might want to try that moniker, but you may not. You may just want to keep saying, no, this is the new one. That's fine. That's your choice. So thanks for watching, Ken. I always appreciate it. All right, my next one comes from a new friend. He's been writing comments on my videos for the last month. His name is Dean Papadopoulos. I think I said that right even. If I didn't, you can say, hey, you didn't say it right. I said Dean Papadopoulos, 3314. Now, it's more of a comment, but I thought I'd turn it into a question. He said, I like and am learning from your attention to volume and your stick choice, right or left, as you make your way around the fill. It looks like most efficient upon seeing it, but otherwise can be played less efficiently by playing it to a crash on the dominant hand. It's a cool principle, and I'm appreciating it by watching you. Fantastic job on playing a beautiful song. I think the drumming back then was more beautifully sonic than it's been for the last 35 years. This was the Commodore's Easy. Now, he's commented on a lot more videos. And thank you, Dean, for liking my style. One of the things he's brought up comments in other videos, I'm not going to bring them all in here, but he's commented about my touch and my feel. This is something I hope you guys get. If you're watching me play drums, a lot of times it's easy to play one beat. But when you can see that I'm playing dynamically, inner dynamics between the hi-hat and the snare, being very, very deliberate about playing lighter and softer in spots and then building up dynamically, that's kind of what I'm about. That's being a musical drummer in my book. And that's what I try to be. I also try to play for the overheads. So the way I have my drum mix is, if I'm playing the cymbals bashing loud, it's going to hurt me. So I tend to not do that. I try to pull the cymbals back and get a right mix. So I'm mixing myself while I'm recording. All the great studio drummers mix themselves while they record. They got a mix of themselves where they know that they're not playing too loud with one appendage. They're playing exactly what they want. They're bringing out the sound they really want to pull out. That is the art of studio drumming. I've been working on that for 30-something years, almost 40 years, 35 years probably. So that's the other aspect of it. So my touch is something I work on. Now, another thing I work on, I do work, and I've been working on this since I took a lesson with John J.R. Robinson back in around the COVID era. It's 2020, I think I did that. I've been working on playing more of my left hand. Versus instead of going to my dominant hand. But I do fills, and I come on my right hand. But every once in a while, I'll come out and pop with my left. So I'm trying to work the left in. Now, as far as going, coming backwards in reverse, I do that occasionally if it makes sense. And a lot of my musical choices for songs, I'm doing it based on the song I'm playing. Now, Easy, I was trying to nail. Here's what you need to know about Easy. Easy is one of my first X-Track stems drumless tracks. I started playing with drumless tracks in the end of 2019. I bought X-Track stems. And just to date myself. And I remember when I got it, I didn't realize that one of the ways to approach drumless tracks with these stems, because what X-Tracks does, what Moises does for a guy who's got a recording studio, is it breaks it out into separate tracks. And early X-Track stems was vocal, drums, and other. Now they've got it, Moises will break it down to like 7, 8 tracks. I mean, they'll break out horns and strings and piano, and guitar, and bass, and vocal, and even BGVs now, background vocals. So you can get crazy with this stuff if you want to. I find 4 tracks is enough. I usually go vocals, drums, bass. I like the bass separated, to be honest. Guitar, and other. So it gives me 5 tracks. And with those 5 tracks, I am able to get a really good mix. I rarely change the mix of the original song, but when I'm recording, it gives me the ability to listen to the original drum track. And early on, I did not figure that out. So when I did Easy, I took the drums out, which didn't make it real easy for me to record, believe it or not. See, I could have took the drums out in the end, which is what I do a lot of times. So like when I'm doing a track and I'm learning the track fast and playing it, the way I get it even close is that I've got the original drum track in my head, and I'm listening to what he's doing, and I'm kind of locking into it. It also helps me to lay it right there, because the click is a little funky on Moises. Sometimes it works good if it's a track that was done with a click, but other times it's all over the place. I play a lot of 60s and 70s music. There was no click tracks. So the music moves. The best way for me to move with the band is to listen to where the drummer's going, and somehow I've learned how to play along with the drummer. When I did Easy, I didn't do that. I did about 5 or 10 songs in early 2020 that I listened to, and I go, I got to redo those. But they're great tracks, and they've got lots of views. Like I did Fire and Rain that way. I did Easy that way, where I took the drums out and I played along with it without a click, no click. Now, if I'm playing without the drum track today, I have some click to go to most of the times. And the only time I pull the click completely and play along with the track kind of freestyle is once I've really learned the track and the drummer is annoying me to the point where I got to find the middle ground, and sometimes pulling it out and the click is so bad it's still not right. I just get used to playing with it. So I've done it like 5 or 10 times, and I go, okay, now I can just lock in with it. That's what I did with Easy, and Easy just worked. But I played Easy to try to kind of get it like the record. And if you listen to Easy, I think what people dig about Easy by the Commodores, and I've got a lot of views on this one too, I think they dig that it's really close. I think it's a little off in a couple spots where it could have been more tight with the track. And I think if I left the drums in, even at a lower volume, because sometimes that's what I do, I pull it back, I would have nailed it easier and it would have been even better. But this was my first attempts of playing drumless tracks using X-Track stems. So I don't know what I was doing going dominant. I was probably more dominant hand too at that point, because this lesson with John Robinson happened right about June of 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And John Robinson made this comment about playing more to my left. So I've been working a lot on hitting with my left hand, trying to engage the left side of my body, up to and including doing, what's that song by Journey that, where Steve was just. What is that song? I'm trying to think of the name of the song. This is a basic groove. Playing that left-hand lead stuff. What is that song called now? Oh man, can't think of it. But you all know when you hear it. It's all like quarter note and kick and snare, but he plays these crazy right-hand melody things. If you think of it, put it in the comments. Because right now I'm drawing a complete blank on it, but you all know it. It's not Separate Ways. It's that other song that's from there. It's Don't Stop Believing. Don't Stop Believing. Yeah. Like, I couldn't play Don't Stop Believing. I'm still working on Don't Stop Believing, by the way. I did a version of Don't Stop Believing. It turned out okay. I'm shocked it turned out okay. But that left-hand lead thing, not me. Talk to CCM drummer. He loves it. There's a bunch of guys that play left-hand lead well. I don't play it well. That's the problem. So, anyhow, Dean, keep watching my videos. I'm sure you have more questions. I try to be a musical drummer. That's my goal. My goal is to be a musical drummer. So thanks for watching. Next question comes from Claus Isaacson. Claus is a longtime follower. Thank you for asking a question, Claus. Very cool percussion element there. The mallet in your left hand looks like it works perfectly with the kit too. Or was it awkward? Thank you for the question, Claus. So this is on the song Baby Don't You Break My Heart Slow. And the interesting thing about this song is that the front end of the song and the back end of the song is a drum machine. And truthfully, I could have just played the drum machine and just sat there and let it go, because that's probably what they did in the studio, and then just came in with the... That's pretty much the beat of the song. But I had this drum machine thing, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to emulate it. So I set up a set of bongos. I have a set of bongos that kind of match that kit. And I was trying to use the sticks on it. And they're not concert tops, they're bongos. One's got a kind of I wouldn't say a calf head, it's probably a mule head on it. And the other one's got a synthetic. And I really didn't want to mess the synthetic up. I just bought that. Matter of fact, one of my grandkids broke that head, which forced me to buy a synthetic head, which I need to buy the second synthetic head because the bongos sound better with the synthetic heads than those cheap. Because it's a lower level LP bongos. It's not a high level. So it doesn't have the really pro heads on it. And when it comes to congas and bongos and stuff, if it's not pro heads, they don't really work. But if you put those synthetic heads on, you can get some interesting pop out of it. Stick wasn't working. I said, let's go to this. Now, this is a very cool stick. This is an Emil Richards maraca mallet. Emil Richards is a famous percussionist from Hollywood, played on lots of records and tons of movies. And Emil had such a percussion collection. Look his name up, and there's a studio in LA that has all of his percussion instruments, or most of his percussion instruments, that he didn't give away to his friends. He did give some of them away to some percussionists in town. But he's got some of the coolest percussion collection ever. He just passed away 2 years ago, just like Joe Porcaro did. Those two guys played on so many soundtracks, it's not even funny. From the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, right up to their death, both of them. Amazing percussionists, both guys, Joe Porcaro and Emil Richards. Anyhow, he made these maraca mallets, and I bought these inspired by Billy Ward. In a video that he had, he had a set of these mallets, and I picked up a pair. Very cool. Because they shake. Anyhow, pretty cool. So I thought these would work well on the bongos. By the way, it would have worked on the concert toms. I just did that. Now I had them a little bit further off to the left for me, so it was less in my way over here, because over here it's a little bit better than, or right here is a little bit better than here in front of me. But when I got to the part where it came in, I played the lick and kept the mallet going. So it had a cool effect because it had this thing. It added a little something. A couple guys kind of commented on the snare sound. So part of that snare sound on that particular track, go check it out, Baby Don't You Break My Heart Slow, is this maraca thing, this maraca mallet. So the mallet had a cool effect. It sounded better on the bongos. It sounded more like hands. I was trying to go for that. Plus it added a little bit of a percussive effect to it. And I actually put it up against the drum machine. I was going to leave the drum machine in and let it be a bed, like I was playing along with it. But I actually pulled the drum machine out and just kept the track like that, and it worked. So I was kind of amazed at that, to be honest. So anyhow, I hope that helps. Was it hard to play? No, it wasn't hard at all. I love playing with different instruments. Like I love playing with a... The problem is when you need to get definition out of a mallet, you got to flip it over. Matter of fact, I have a set of mallets that are drumsticks. Vader made them. Matter of fact, one of these days I'm going to pull out my crazy stick bags, because my stick bags are kind of nuts. I mean, I've been collecting stuff for years. Like this is a Mike Balter set of marimba mallets. I've got my old marimba mallets from college, you know, timpani mallets. And then friends like Alan Levine said, I don't need this anymore, and I take them, and I got them. I've got like all kinds of brushes and stuff. So one of these days I'm going to open up one of my stick bags and show you all the craziness I got. I mean, these blast sticks I've had for 35 years probably. They're all beat up. They're cool. Then I got a pair of the black ones. I broke the black ones. They get all kind of chewed up. They sound better, believe it or not, than when they're new. So it takes years to kind of wear them in. I love brushes. This is an old set of brushes. Oh, these are my Steve Gads. I've had these for 10 years now. You know? I don't know. I love playing with crazy stuff. And you do have to practice to play with this stuff. I practice with brushes a lot, actually, just to get that sweep and all that stuff. But I practice rudiments sometimes with brushes just to keep my chops up so I can play brushes. But I don't play brushes great, but I play them well enough to kind of fake it. So I think it's really important to do those kinds of things. That's been my experience. So anyhow, now it wasn't that big a deal, and I thought it was a cool effect. And I will use more of those things when I think it's a cool effect. So thanks for the question, though, Claus. That's a great question. And it was interesting putting the percussion in to kind of give it that drum machine vibe. All right, my next question comes from Big C 4205. Your set sounds great. Any tips for recording? Now, this is interesting. This was on a song called Swinging Shanty, Sitting In With the Big Band, Volume 1. So, got to think of how I set my drums up. Now, this kit's got eight microphones on it. The main kit in the other studio, the Gretsch kit, it's got 8 microphones on it. If I've got more toms, I've got around 8 microphones. I'll dial it down. If I only got 2 toms, then I'll have 6. If I have 3 toms, I'll have 7. And if I have 4 or more, I'll have 4 mics for the toms. When I did the big band stuff, that big band, I was using the little Gretsch kit. And the little Gretsch kit at that point in time had 4 mics on it. It had a kick drum mic, a snare drum mic, and it had an overhead, and then it had one off to the side. It was kind of in a Glyn Johns setup. By the way, I just did a couple more of these big band tracks with the little kit where I had 3 mics. I had one on the kick drum, and then I had an overhead right over top of the snare, and then I had another one over here, and it was equidistant from the snare drum, meaning you make sure that your stick, you take a stick, pair of sticks, and you go like this, and the mic lands here, that's that, and then you go over here, and then you put your mic as close as that is, whatever that distance is from the snare drum. And that's a Glyn Johns effect. It's a miking technique. I believe I was using Glyn Johns miking technique when I did that video, or for a while there, I had these stereo overhead. So stereo overhead kick and snare. There was definitely no tom mics on there. So how do you get different drum sounds, and how do you mic things like that? First off, you need a DAW. You need a program like Logic. You need a board or preamps, or an interface to go into the program. And then you need to understand some basic miking techniques. One of the key miking techniques I use to keep my stereo image good is I use coincident miking. Now, coincident miking means the capsules of the mics come to a 110 degree. They're not 40, they're not like this, they're like this. And basically, it's almost a crisscross. It's almost like you get away with crisscrossing them, but you don't. You put them right at each other. And you put it right over top of the center of the drum, so the kick drum plops into the center, and the snare drum plops into the center of the image. So when you pan your microphones in your DAW, you don't lose the kick and the snare in the middle, and the kick doesn't sound softer or lighter or loses the bottom end. Is what you're really not trying to do. It's not about softness or lightness. It's about losing the bottom end. These miking techniques that I use on my drum kits and how I mic drums all have to do with years of having a recording studio, a functioning recording studio where I recorded tracks for people, and I recorded bands, and I recorded musicians, and I recorded drums for people. And I've learned over time how to do that stuff. So the audio side of YouTube has always been rather easy to me. The video side took a little bit longer. I'm getting better at the video. I mean, the thing with video is getting color in there. It's lighting, it's shadows and things like that. It's really hard to figure out. I'm not very good at it. I'm getting better sometimes. But as far as audio sound, I have a whole series of videos on how I make a drum video that are a couple years old. And I keep upgrading stuff. I mean, not so much upgrading equipment, but upgrading my ears. And I've dialed in my templates. I just went through a 2024 template dial in recently, and on that other kit. And now I've moved some of those channels to this. And I just recorded with this the last couple of days using those same channel setups. Very little tweaking needed because I've got my kits dialed in pretty much how I sound. So I still always tweak things, but that's the other side of it. So it's microphones, inputs, DAW. I record everything in a DAW. I'm not using camera audio. I'm not using a PA system. I'm not going into a mixer that's coming out of speakers, okay? I'm going into a computer, and I record everything in a computer. That's pretty complicated for some people. For other people, it's pretty simple. Once you figured out how to do it and you build your templates, you go from there. And if anybody has any, the toughest thing is EQ. A lot of guys with EQ want to boost the frequencies they hear the best, but they don't realize that a lot of the frequencies that are in a channel like a snare drum can be taken out. One of the places I take out on a snare drum track, besides using proper muffling, and by the way, studio guys know how to muffle their drums. As much as a live kit, you'll see a live kit and it's all wide open, they may be getting away with stuff. And of course, there's some super cool plugins that kind of build some of the muffling in. So if you're using a really live thing like a gate, I have a gate called an Oxford drum gate those of you that have DAWs, I would recommend the Oxford Drumgate to you. There's a guy named Kurt Biscara, Kirky B goes by. He did a video on the Oxford Drumgate, and I watched it, and then they were selling it cheap, and I bought it. I use Oxford Drumgate on almost every video for the last 2.5 years since I've had it. And Oxford Drumgate's got a setting that's open drums, toms, and vintage muffled toms. Like putting a muffle on it, like putting a tea towel, vintage tea towel it's called. I use vintage tea towel all the time on that kit. So that kit's more wide open. It's got mid-rangey Remo Ambassador heads on it. And then when I put it through the tea towel drum gate, they sound good, really good. It's like, okay, so I can get away with playing them more wide open with less muffling on them. And they may have a little bit of, like I tend to use not moon gel anymore. I've gotten into using this cheap stuff from Amazon. They come in like 48 pack of these little clear rubber things. They're not removable and put onable again like moon gel is. Moon gel you can use 50 times. These you put them on once. You're gonna, if you get them on there and it stays, keep it there. I have this little piece on this 8-inch tom. Takes a little bit of something out, but none of these other drums have any of that stuff on it. I don't think there's any on these toms. Nope, clear completely. Even this 6 has nothing, but this little 8's got this one little piece here. This floor tom's got five of these because the floor tom is so massive. This is an 18. So you need to know when to muffle, when not to muffle. And one of the things for recording in the studio is muffling. So I use big fat snare drum. I use other rings. I put things on snare drums to get sounds. Little muffling in the bass drum. Like even that kit over there, the Gretsch kit, it's pretty wide open, the bass drum. It's a 20, so I don't want to stick a pillow in there. But what I do is that front head makes a resonation sound, and the mic's right there. So what I like to do on that drum is I take a pillow off my couch, and I throw it up against the front head, and it muffles it. It works. All these things are little tricks you learn in the studio and trying to get sounds, and that's how you get the sounds, is you try them and you make them work. On that kit, it was pretty wide open that day from what I remember, and I got a good mix of the mics with the track, and it worked well. So that's the key to the whole thing. And I really do appreciate the question. I know I didn't answer it extensively, Big C, but I hope you got something out of it. And if you want to go deeper, please go deeper with me. Now, another thing I want to say to all you guys, I didn't say it in the beginning, my Earldrum at AOL account right now is kind of locked. I can't get into it. Something happened. I think they did some kind of a security measure and they kicked me out, and now I can't get back in. So if you guys are sending me anything, any emails at earldrum@aol.com, that's probably not going to work. So if you're trying to get a hold of me, do it through YouTube right now, and I'll find a way to get back to you if I already have your email address. One of you may be stopping by the studio, so you usually write me on the AOL. Right now I can't get in. I'm going to hopefully get in on a Monday. But I will say our email is, everything is suspect to people trying to steal it from everything from us these days. It's crazy. But I may have missed a few questions because some guys send me questions on AOL. So I don't know what else to say about that. All right. Let's go here. This is my last question. This comes from a real good follower of mine, Mickey F. 3730. He said, "What a great performance this was, Baby Don't You Break My Heart Slow" by Vonda Shepard. I have a question for you. If you only had a 10-inch and a 12-inch rack tom and a floor tom, and I asked him what was the floor tom, and he told me the floor tom is a 14-inch floor tom. Now, I assume it's a 14 by 14, okay? He says, and you wanted to add another rack tom, what size would you go for, an 8-inch or a 13? I'm curious to know your thoughts because that's what I currently have, and I'm not sure I want a higher pitch or a lower pitch punchy sound. I realize it's totally up to me, but I just want to know your thoughts. Thanks. Now, I was hoping, Mickey, you were going to say 16-inch floor tom, because that was the thing in the 70s and 80s. It was 12, 8 by 12, 9 by 13, 16 by 16. Today you've got kind of what they call a fusion kit. I hope you got a 14 by 14, a true 14 by 14 floor tom, because I think that makes a big difference. I was going to say to you, the 12 and the 13, like even this kit right here, concert toms, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I like the 2-inch size difference, or I like 10, 13, 16. Now, I will occasionally use 12, 13, 16. Sometimes I'll use 12 and 16. Sometimes I'll use 10 and 16. Sometimes I'll use 10 and 14. Sometimes I'll use 12 and 14. So I have lots of drums, so I do lots of different things. I'm not a big fan of the 8, to be honest, even though the last couple weeks I've been playing that Gretsch kit with that 8-inch tom I hadn't used in years, and I'm kind of digging the 8-inch tom. I got it dialed in the right place. The 10 works. I got an 8, 10, 13, 16. I used to do a lot of weddings with that setup, 8, 10, 13, 16. I like that separation, 10, 13, 16, and the 8 worked. But one of my things I've always wanted to do was get a 8 by 12 and a 10 by 14 like this tom. It's a 10 by 14 Gretsch, and then you go with a 16. I always thought 8 by 12, 10 by 14, 16 by 16 would be a cool thing, and that's because I don't have a 10 by 14. So I was going to say add a 14, but because it's 14, my problem with 13s, to be honest, is sometimes they don't tune as easily as you might think, sticking it in between. That 2-inch difference makes a difference. So if you want the lower pitch, go for the 13. If you don't care about the lower pitch and you're willing to take the 8 as the higher pitch, you don't have to tune it up high. You just got to tune it down, but then you got to tune your 10 in reference to, like when I tune this kit, you either tune bottom or you top to bottom. Either way. I go both ways with this. But you got to get the right separation between the drums. That's the key. And I find sometimes a 12, 13 doesn't give it to me. Like that kit was not playing well with the 12 and the 13. So I pulled the 12 out, put the 10 in, 10, 13, 16. And I was like, wow, that sounds good. Sometimes I go 10, 12, 14. Sounds good. If I try to go 12, 13, 14, it gets wonky sometimes. Now, I think the problem is Gretsch 12-inch tom head needs to change. I'm not sure I have one that's going to work for it, and I haven't changed it yet, but I think that 12 is kind of shot. That could be the problem. When your heads are a little bit old, sometimes you can't get the tuning in the right place. So, it's really your decision, Mickey. I think the 8, 10, 12, 14 is cool, but you may want 13. Now, you didn't tell me what kind of drums they are. That would have an effect on me too, possibly, if I knew what kind of drums you were talking about. But I know there's lots of options. It might be cooler to get a 16, to be honest. Just a thought. Really blow your mind. 10, 12, 14, 16. 16 might be cooler. I like the low drums. I've come to really dig the low. Especially this monster. My gosh. When I talk about a drum that's fun, oh my gosh. 16 by 18 is huge. Boom. Love it. But I do love this. So, it's really up to you. You might want to add the 16. I just find you get with 1 inch, the 12, 13 thing doesn't work. That's why I rarely have this kit set up 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I used to put the 15 here. I like the 15 as a floor tom, by the way. I did that for years because I didn't have this 18. But since I've got this 18, this drum really kills. It's just super low pitch. Sometimes it's too big, to be honest. Anyhow, that's a thought. All right. That's it for questions for Ask Earl Anything. Thank you for watching. Remember, your questions make the show. Without your questions, I don't have a show. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of Tate Berkey doing his thing. So I hope you enjoy it. And Tate, say hi. Just want to say hi to you. And everybody, if you got any shots of you playing drums or videos of you playing drums you want me to add to my show next time, send it to me. I'll put it in. I'd love to feature my subs, the guys that watch my show. I really do appreciate your questions. Your questions do make the show. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great November. Happy Thanksgiving. And we'll talk again soon in December. Bye.
Excuse me, Funky Biscuit, I gotta go dip my hands in some ice. Watch out for that one. of Boca Raton Funky Biscuit. Are you speechless too? How about just making some more whoops and hollers for the great Tate Berkey back there on the board?